last minute standing room only tickets, 2 tickets, $1,100 a piece.
Yeah, and no guarantee you're gonna have a court view.
I told him, dude, he'll be there. I was at Stevie Ray Vaughan's last concert. I don't know that I would pay $1,100 to bring him back to see him again.
Yeah, no, those standing room only tickets are crazy, because they even said right on them, like, no courtside view guaranteed.
Right.
Like, you could be watching us TV, but you're in the stadium, and you paid $1,100 just to walk in the door. Yikes. Yeah, the ticket prices just got out of control.
I went to the Super Bowl to see the Packers and Steelers back in 2011. I'd never do it again.
Yeah.
I was
I was at the one in like 97 when we lost to Denver
San Diego.
in San Diego. Pretty cool experience, but man, talk about a crazy scenario with the amount of people, and that one there was a lot of weirdness. These people weren't other ones.
trapped into the whole expansion of the seating scaffolding. It's been a fiasco that our seats were not finished when we got there.
You ready? All right, let's call this meeting of the planning commission to order. Start off with a roll call. Commissioner Mecca. Here. Commissioner Fickow absent, excused. Trustee Renner. Here. Planner Sensky. Here. President Lysick here. Clerk Ford.
Here.
Commissioner Bennett, excused. Trustee Howdyshell.
Present.
Commissioner Zimbrewski's excused. And engineer Rauch. And Fire Marshal Brown.
We missed the memo. Should we reschedule this? Or?
Yeah. Item 2 is consideration and approval of minutes. We do not have the minutes finished yet, so we will skip that. Go on to item 3, old business, village staff / official review discussion and status update to the planning commission regarding occasion. Phase 2 fill project. The project is located at approximately and surrounding South 72, West 23085 National Avenue. It is Zone B3 General Business District. In your packets, you have the latest inspection report from Will Hine. I spoke with him for a little bit this afternoon. He said the place really needs rain. Like everybody else. Is Sahak still watering? Is Sahak still watering the grass?
When we can, yeah.
Right, yeah, you only have so much time. Yeah, he said it takes 8 to 10 hours to fill a truck and only an hour or 2 to empty it.
Wow.
And 3,000 gallons doesn't go very far to 17 acres. We will have the agreement at the board meeting on the 5th to approve, the one we drafted and agreed to at the last planning commission meeting. So after August 5th, we'll have you come down and sign it with the clerk. The agreement, we're gonna have you sign the agreement after the 5th. We'll email it to you first.
Tonight,
No, August 5th.
when August 5th?
The board has to approve it.
Oh,
That's
Yep.
an agreement that transitions him out of the conditional use grant and into a lot to have to complete the restoration.
Any other updates, Naomi?
Oh, on that one? Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. You have nothing either?
Nothing, you can go.
Good. We're all set. Thank you.
that's it.
That's it.
I have done as well, Paul.
Yeah,
Take care.
We do a lot of grass cutting too,
I heard.
on the outside of the berm.
Hopefully that keeps the moisture in the ground if it comes.
Alright.
We figured we cut the weeds at least, but if we get any rain, it'll help the grass.
Have a good night, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4, new business. A, review, discussion, and possible recommendation to the village board to approve a conditional use grant to develop a 16-lot, single-family residential planned unit development, PUD, and including consideration of the associated final plat, i.e. Ripplebrook East. This request pertains to village tax parcel number BBV 2112993-003 containing approximately 35.5 acres of land, such parcel being located adjacent to and south of Henneberry Avenue, just east of and adjacent to the Ripple Brook West subdivision in the village of Big Bend, Wisconsin. The property is zoned R2 residential district. The property owner / applicant is Steven Stiza.
From the planning perspective, this is a pretty straightforward request. When you get to the final plat level, essentially the question for the reviewer is this plat substantially consistent with the preliminary plat that was approved by the planning commission and the village board previously on this project? The answer in my review is that it is, yes. It's a substantially consistent representation of the preliminary plat. So I guess I would point out to you that as part of the preliminary plat approval, when this entered the process, our process was for a PUD to be handled through conditional use grant. And through both of those processes, flexibility is afforded to the developer in their design process to have exemptions from various specific standards of the R2 district, or the R2 district. And in this case, there were several. They're listed in my staff report. All of those were approved by the planning commission and the board as a part of the preliminary plat review. So from my perspective, the only conditions that I'm suggesting would be attached, if you're inclined toward making a recommendation to the village board of this final plat, would be that the preliminary plat changes have to be made to reflect the comments and recommendations of the state, county, village planning commission, planner, engineer, and any other village departments that the final plat's been circulated to and have review and approval authority over. The revisions have to be returned for final review by the village engineer before advancing the plat to the village board. Okay? If the village board supports the final plat in its review of the conditional use for planned unit development request, the approval would be conditioned on the applicant returning through the planning commission and the village board processes with a final plat, that's not wrong, with a development agreement that should say development agreement. That captures all of the standard requirements of the village code in terms of development agreements, okay? That's the infrastructure, it's the establishment of the homeowners association as a responsible party for stormwater, long-term stormwater care, etc. And then condition number 3, that the conditional use permit and the related land covenant that goes with it would be fully executed prior to the start of any work on the project. So I'll turn it over to Naomi for review and comments.
Sure. Do you have the review or recommendation for approval of July 19th in the printed packet? Because I didn't see that in my printed packet.
Yeah.
Oh, you have it? Oh, yeah, that one, yeah. Okay. I purchased one.
Do you need it?
No, I have one right here.
Okay.
So we have gone through our full engineering review of the subdivision and grading plan, stormwater management plan. I have talked with the developer, Mr. Stiza, about, there's a couple of remaining issues that, one of them I put as a condition of my recommendation for approval. So I have, he knows he needs an NOI. Actually, we received the NOI from the DNR, so that's all taken care of. There's gonna be preparing an engineer's estimate for the construction of the public improvements, stormwater management facilities that we will require as a bond. That's pretty typical, and we'll include that in our developer's agreement. Which is also required as part of the development, and then stormwater management or maintenance agreement. One of the requests that I have been asking is there is an old floodplain study. It was a backwater analysis that was done in '05 for Ripple Brook. It was done by Metropolitan Engineering, who's no longer around, no longer an entity. And Will Hine, Engineer Hine, shared with me some documentation that he had for this floodplain study. It's limited at the information that we have, but I can tell from the study that the location of the subdivision is not affected by backwater at the culvert downstream. However, the study is old. It does not use the current rainfall data that was adopted by Wisconsin DNR in 2015. In 2015, the DNR went from allowing a type 2 rainfall distribution and a TP40 rainfall depth to the current MSC 3 distribution and Atlas 14 rainfall data. So in looking at the study and realizing that we probably don't need to require a full backwater analysis because we have that from the initial study, I do want to verify with some hydrology calculations and a simple channel calculation that the 100-year high water level is not in the area proposed to be filled with the berm of the detention basin. Because there is a berm of the detention basin is the closest thing to the creek. So I have asked that the hydrology calculations be submitted using the current approved rainfall data and the appropriate distribution, and that a channel cross-section be analyzed to see that it has capacity and we're not filling it. If you remember at the public hearing, there was someone that had concerns about the floodplain in that area. So, while I don't think we need a whole detailed study, update the metropolitan study, I would like this channel calculation completed to show that the water level and that we're not filling it. That might be, I think Mr. Sazza wants to have a disagreement on that.
Discussion, because we're looking for discussion, correct?
Right. And then the other issue, I'm gonna refer to that. And the other thing that we discussed, and I didn't put it as as part of a condition of my recommendation for approval, but I think it should be noted that the Chapter 9 ordinance for the village is the streets ordinance, public roads. And in the past couple projects, Superintendent of Public Works has said, I think there was Edgewood and Industrial Drive, and then the more recent one that I've been involved with, the Lake Park Storage, we've requested 12 inches of road base based on what is proposed for an ordinance change in the streets, Chapter 9. Chapter 9 has not been revised or approved yet, and the current ordinance says 10 inches of base. So the current ordinance says 10 inches base. We've been asking developers to use 12 based on the upcoming changes. That's also been an item up for discussion tonight. I talked with Superintendent of Public Works. The reason why the ordinance change is being looked at and requested is because past developments where when things go under, we're left with base and it's not holding up. A 12-inch base holds up longer than a 10-inch base. That was what Public Works and Engineer Hine had come up with the new ordinance requirements. And that's been kind of sitting in Public Works Committee because they haven't been able to get a quorum. So initially we said, yeah, we're gonna request this because we know this ordinance change is coming, but it hasn't yet gone through and been approved. So those are the only two things left. I mean, we've had a pretty clean review of it. It's been really, great working with the developer. Those are the two items that I would contemplate putting as a condition on this approval.
Okay, is it me up for discussion though?
Sure.
Or do you guys have any questions about?
I don't have any questions myself.
Okay. Well, there's actually 3 items, that you did miss one of them.
Oh.
And you referred to in your engineering estimate. You want to need a bond for an as-built. Municipalities can only bond for what they're gonna own. You're not gonna own the as-built of the ponds, okay?
Okay, you don't need to buy.
Understate, I know you stated that I had to do it.
Okay,
in
I'll
the
take that
engineer's
off.
estimate.
Okay, I'll take that off.
So
I'll
under
rewrite that.
state statute, I don't have to bond for anything but public improvements, and that's not a public improvement. And I'm not sure why you're asking for something to be bonded that's not a public improvement.
Okay, you have a good point.
And
I
also,
can take that off.
and also under state statutes, when I file my plat, whatever ordinance is in effect, that's the rules of the game. 10 inches of crushed stone, that's all I have to put in, and you will lose that in case law. It clearly
I
states
did not
it.
put that as part of my condition I brought up for discussion.
Well,
Yeah, it's not on her sheet, she just brought it up.
Yeah, she
On a
ended up
separate
here.
sheet.
and I mean, I talked to who's ever in charge of the DP board, he said, Steve, 10 inches is all you have to put down, that's the word. And he was adamant about that, and actually was upset that you, I mean, I'd like to know which developers you made do 12 inches.
I didn't make anybody do
But
it.
you-
We requested
But you
12.
inferred that in the email. Yeah, you did. You said I made others do it.
No, I said we asked others to do it.
So is this a public street like Edgewood, an existing public street? Or did you have a developer put down the 12 inches?
The public street, no, we
Because you're saying 12
requested
inches.
12 inches, yeah, base.
Was it a public street?
It was
that
not,
already
it was a
existed?
private, it was a private, it's right over here, it's the only one that I've ever approved. It's a private road.
I mean, that developer could come back and,
The other two I was referring to were before my time.
and I guess as far as the 100-year floodplain goes, there's no ordinance that cites that I have to go to the new rainfall on a 100-year flood study. She's being arbitrary and capricious over this, and possibly biased. I'm not quite sure why or what the reasoning is. When I talked, we spoke with the DNR yesterday about this. Michelle Pace, she's the dam and safety and
I know Michelle.
floodplain reviewer. She said she has never reviewed any study with new rainfall in the last 10 years.
With what?
She has never reviewed a flood study with the new rainfall calculation.
I found a DNR publication that I can send you that said that they were requiring MSE3 and,
That's for pond studies.
no, it was for a
Not
flood
flood
study.
studies.
It was for a flood study, I'll send it to you.
But also at the same time, when we, in your own ordinance, you do have in there, under the, for the pond, the 100-year flood elevation for the ponds,
Bonds,
okay?
bonds.
It refers to, okay, when you get down to the last line, it states clearly, on a case-by-case basis, the Village of Big Bend may allow the use of the TP40 precipitation depths and type 2 distribution, and that refers to the old 5.88 rainfall of 1960.
For the ponds,
Correct.
yeah.
So I think might be getting them mixed up.
Yeah, I did see that.
And I strongly suggest, I do not want to do another 100 flood study. I don't. It's very expensive, it's costly. As it is, I feel like I had to pay the village to educate them on the correct pavement mix that was to be used in my subdivision. I mean, I paid a few $100 in review fees for, emails going back and forth to finally get DPW and the engineer to agree that they had the wrong design mix, that was old and outdated. They were trying to do like a medium duty when that's a light duty subdivision. There's only 9 lots. And the reason for the failure in your roads here wasn't because of poor subbase, it's because the asphalt cracked and water got in there. They weren't maintained properly. That was the problem with that subdivision up there. You didn't have enough money to seal coat it or patch the cracks. That was the road failure. It wasn't the thickness. I mean, mine has 8 inches of road gravel, doesn't have crushed stone. Look how good mine is. Mine didn't blow apart. You build to the soil conditions you have. I mean, we had to contact her highway engineers to get them to understand that it needed a light duty asphalt.
Like my opinion?
Yeah,
I don't recall this, but
but we talked to them.
I wasn't part of that discussion, unless that was someone else from Kohler.
So anyways, I strongly suggest that you just, I mean, you said like the person that was concerned, he'll flood the most, Mr. Peterson. And lives in the village of, Vernon. He was the one that was, concerned about flood. And even, right now, the high water mark there is, what is it, like, I think it's
It changes.
85, what is it, there's 85.
I don't recall the numbers.
It's on the plat. And, she said,
The number on the plat is for the low end, it changes because it's a profile, so at the high end, it's a few feet higher than that. You might be on the.
it's on the construction.
Yeah, it's on the, it is on the construction.
Anyways, if at the closest point we're doing the construction, if you do a cross section there right now, the water could come up 4 feet before it even get anywhere near where we're filling.
That's all I was looking for, is just a channel calculation, not a full step. I just want to be clear, we've
you know,
talked about that.
I'm spending money like crazy on review fees. I mean, even talked to Jim Dorn, he spent $12,000 or $14,000 with the attorneys and the planner and the engineer to update his, the subdivision that they're working on. I strongly recommend it. I mean, you've got the power.
So I got a question away from that. There was a document that was brought into our folder from Waukesha County Department of Parks and Land Use, dated July 16, 2021, for review of the plats. Brought up about 15 points. Like most of them were minor changes. Some of them were interpretations that needed to happen. We reviewed that. Is there any concerns? Naomi?
This is the first time I've seen it.
Okay.
It's just a typical
It's pretty,
dot your i's and cross your t's.
yeah, I mean,
You
yeah, it's
you
from
can
a
either
wetland
listen to it or you don't
report.
have to. Because you're the
I
village.
did see that in my packet, just didn't put it up.
So we don't know for sure if there's anything in there that would be any stumbling blocks or anything else we would need to take a look at. Sure.
I'm all mixed up here. I'm sorry, can I look at this one?
Yeah. And then there's another one that was dated, I think, July 1st, no, July 12th. Where, again, from the Parks and Land Use, Waukesha County, for, they're requesting, for Waukesha County private sewage for soil data. Do we have any, been able to take a look at that?
Yeah, he provided soil data for each lot.
Okay.
Yeah, we have soil borings on each lot, and it's showing, those soil borings are showing on the location.
All right, so we're good on that one then?
Yep.
Obviously, on that letter though, they called out specific concern about lot 9 to be cautious about, based on disturbed soil and where you could put the septic. So obviously, we want to make sure that that's adhered to.
Where are, so where did you
So, subpart double I, under 1. Oh, for the memo on July 12th, this one.
As far as the other document from Waukesha County, looking through it, we do have an ordinary high water mark on the construction plans. Maybe just wasn't indicated or clearly indicated on the plat, so I've seen where that is. We do have, they asked for, some of it's just verbiage
Yeah.
that they wanted. We are aware of the wetlands and the environmental protection corridor. We do have a copy. Mr. Stiles has provided all the wetland documentation, so I do have that in file. The wetland delineation reports, we do have that. We do have the soil surveys, yeah. Yeah, no, there's nothing in here that would make me overly concerned with the final plat.
Number 12 too related to the vision corner.
Corner, that's an easy,
Okay.
yeah, that's an easy lot.
He's got it showing.
Description.
That is a maximum height of interference kind of reference in there,
Which one is that?
under the vision clearance triangles.
Gotcha. So I guess then really the biggest stumbling blocks is the exceptions that's being taken to the engineers for recommendations done.
Agreed.
I think we need to get that ironed out.
I couldn't hear what you said, I'm sorry.
I said, I think we need to get that ironed out. I don't feel comfortable in making any recommendations without knowing the direction we need to go forward with.
Okay, well, maybe we need a private conversation.
And what were the big concerns, obviously, with the 100-year floodplain? What was the other one? The
The
depth
base.
of the base?
What, you said the base?
Yeah.
How is that a concern?
No, it's just-
It's not in your ordinance.
Correct. It was points she brought up, that was discussion points, that's all. I was just asking where there was contention. So,
You could not make a condition.
We're not trying to.
we were just talking through the points.
Thank you.
I'm really just I'm passing that through for city staff, or folks.
I'd like to just point something out, like, if you guys push to 6 inches, that's to the industrial park standards, and you're really not gonna get much private development going on here. I mean, we had a developers council meeting, this is a big discussion point, what's going on in a lot of communities around here, big discussion point.
But we can't push 12 inches.
You can't push what?
12 inches. No, she brought to our attention that it's a proposed ordinance change. That's all she said.
Okay.
She's bringing it up that it's on the radar to change it. But you're already getting platted probably under the old ordinance.
That's correct.
Right.
Under state statutes, those are.
Right,
those
so
are
you gotta go
requirements.
by what is on the books now,
Correct.
or when it's a final plat.
So he's suggesting it's a flood issue still.
So you have a floodplain issue, and you wanted the one part taken out, stricken about the as-bills. And,
And she
On the bond side.
agreed to that.
right,
Yep,
on the bond side, so.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just telling you, I think you guys are overreaching on it. This could be a quite a contention. I think.
Pardon me?
Related to the bond, to the depth. If it gets approved. if we were pursuing that.
The floodplain study isn't a full-blown floodplain study.
I
What you're
asked,
asking for?
no, I asked for, I think, I wanna get back to it. A high water level population, I believe is what I asked for. Because,
Like I said, in her own letter, she stated that, I just wanna make sure that it demonstrates that no fill will be in the proposed 100-year high water mark. I could go 5 feet and we wouldn't put any fill in the high water mark. So what's the point?
Okay,
What's the point? It's just wasting money.
I
and time?
am asking for that the hydrology calculations to the flow rate be based on the updated rainfall of 6.03 in Alice 14. And that they be based on the MSC3 distribution. And that a channel cross-section be used at the restricted location be utilized in the channel capacity calculation. Channel capacity calculation, you can, it's not a full flood study. We do it when we size like swales and channels. So it's taking the flow rate and the slope of the creek in one cross-section at the most restricted point and seeing how high the water will get. I estimate less than 4 hours for it.
So this is a changed recommendation that's coming down from the DNR.
No,
This,
it's her opinion. It's not the DNR.
with the old flood study that we have, which was not approved by the DNR back in '05, uses a different rainfall distribution.
Right.
And the guidance that I found is that the technical guidance says you can use a synthetic hydrograph, which both are. And then I found a guidance that came out in 2015 for flood studies, for hydrology calculations that the DNR was going to require the MSC3. Let me find them. I sent it to myself.
So it's basically from this 2015 flood study that came out through the DNR, the recommendation was to use the MSE3 distribution model, hydrology calculation models, correct? That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying
it,
to.
Okay, but she's saying that the DNR didn't review it. Well, the Waukesha County did.
I
So
don't know.
why do we need to do it to the DNR standard?
Well, I don't know if anybody the village reviewed the original study. I don't know
It
who
was,
reviewed it.
at that time, Waukesha County had jurisdiction. Because they weren't a village then.
You're talking about in 05,
Yes,
who wasn't a village back then?
correct. And that's why Waukesha County,
Did
they had
it-
shoreline jurisdiction and zoning.
okay.
And basically Waukesha County wanted to do a whole watershed study for the brook in this area. And, you know, push me into that, which I didn't think I had to do, but they wanted to know what it was.
We don't have the latest version of chapter 13 published.
From this letter, okay.
Chapter 13 is still 191. It's been through and approved. I don't think it's published online yet.
Yeah, it's online.
The
Unless
new
you-
version,
I don't
When
know.
was the new version?
either earlier this year or late last year.
I think it was, I think January.
Yeah, there's some.
I
It
have
could be, because I think it's just 10 on there. Yeah, it could be.
That it should be 20 or 21. We did, there wasn't a whole ton of revisions, but I don't know if any of these changes were adopted into that or not either.
what I'm basing my recommendation off of is a DNR newsletter that came out in 2015. And it says the hydraulic modeling from TP40, TP49 to Atlas 14 transition. It says that these documents estimate various rainfall totals to be used in hydrologic modeling. After March 1st, 2015, the Wisconsin DNR floodplain program will no longer accept hydrology that uses the TP40, TP49, or SCS Type 2, if the analysis has not already been started or received a contract bid before March 1st of 2015. When you submit a flood study that is to be mapped and approved through DNR and FEMA, you have to submit at least two different ways to show your hydrology. One is a synthetic hydrograph, one is some other different method. So there is variances on on depending on what data they have for that river creek, if you have a gauge and you show the TP40 matches the gauge better, they will allow you to use the TP40. That was the original study. So I'm not saying that that's totally off the wall wrong. All I'm saying is that it's been updated. That's my basis for my recommendation.
But there's still a lot of
There's-
TP40, is what you're saying, right?
No, it said they were, well, if you have data and you match the data for the gauge, yes, they will allow you to.
Okay, and again, you said it's not going to DNR,
It's not going to
you
DNR.
know.
Also, I want the commission to know there are no houses that are remotely close. There are no building paths. It's just an issue of where the pond is relative to the footprint. There's a berm right there. Are we filling that or aren't we? That's it. That's the basis.
When you say there's a big berm there, what do you mean there's a big berm there?
Just that side of the pond, you're berming up, you're filling. So you're berming up to contain the water.
Okay, but that elevation is like I said, is that,
It's 4 inches above the creek.
it's like,
Or 4
it's
feet
like
above
5,
the
6 feet above the
Yeah,
high water mark. So how
it's,
am I filming or doing
it's
that
above the
grading?
ordinary high water mark, which is a different weighted. It's a whole different line altogether.
It's a waste of money and time. And this really upsets me a lot.
I mean, if Michelle, and I have a lot of respect for Michelle Hayes, I've worked with her, I'm a certified floodplain manager, I do a lot of work for DNR. If she says that she regularly sees things without the MSC3, then that means a lot in my book.
So, you stated that you had a conversation with.
My engineer did,
Your engineer did.
because he deals with her on a weekly
I
basis.
believe that we need to see something in writing, and not my engineer had a conversation with her, or, that.
I can
we
call
have-
Michelle and have this conversation.
Yeah, at that point, it's hearsay, right? So if we get something that's documented, whether it's an email or
I
whatever.
would be happy to follow up with Michelle and say, hey, we're the, Village of Big Bend, this is what we have. We need to regulate according to our ordinance. What are your thoughts on this? I can certainly do that.
I would feel very much more comfortable with making a decision on this if we have something of stature.
But it doesn't state in your ordinance that I have to do it to that level. It doesn't state it.
It's good engineering.
It just
practice.
says engineers
It's good engineering practice.
review.
To not, to be
And
certain.
I
you're not
just
doing
think it's more being arbitrary and capricious, asking for it. And overreaching. I mean, they just went through all the FEMA mapping, remapping in the city of Waukesha. They didn't change the rainfall, they kept it the same. I know that for a fact, because that's what she said, because I own some property that used to be in the flood fringe, and now they took it out, thank God, because it actually got lowered. They didn't change the
I would be
rainfall.
happy to have that conversation with them. I can put it in my file and we as a village can be sure that we're using the best available data.
And the proper methodology that's acknowledged by the state DNR.
I would be comfortable with that for sure.
I don't think Naomi's being selective or capricious here. I think her job first and foremost is to protect our taxpayers from future damages should something happen. A lawsuit from a homeowner or homeowners or a homeowners association 60 years down the road, because
'Cause you did
We
what?
cheated the DNR on 4 millimeters of water over 100 years.
The problem is, it's the culvert that goes underneath, 66.7 or whatever that is. I mean, there's a reason why they choke it, because they don't want a lot of water going in the Fox River. But, I mean, my stormwater management is collected in that pond for the 100-year flood elevation.
It is.
So I don't understand how it's gonna affect it.
Are you opposed to having her contact and talk with the DNR? to try to
Absolutely
see-
not. Why would I be?
Then I don't know what the challenge is at this point. It sounds like a fairly simplistic answer. It's not gonna cost anybody a dime until we find out if it's guidance that they're requiring.
Well, or is it just a recommendation?
Right now.
It could be that it's the DNR's recommendation, that's kind of what I'm saying.
That's a
Or
little bit of what
suggestion.
we need to
You know.
find out. I don't know what it would be contained inside of the flood study newsletter published by the DNR in 2015, if it would be a requirement or if it would be a recommendation. I don't know. I think that we need to clarify that before we, before we ultimately make a decision on the pathway that needs to be taken.
Right.
Do you see any issue that there would be any challenges to, if we would have to recommend to go to the 6.03
Could
inches
be.
versus the
There could be.
5.88?
There could be, and I'd have to have a private conversation with Warren over it. Yeah.
Okay.
So is it reasonable to imagine that you might be able to get that interaction with Michelle Hayes in the course of tomorrow, early part of next week?
DNR?
Yeah.
I can certainly try, yeah.
DNR?
Yeah, a lot of them are working remotely, but
I can certainly try.
Because my thought would be, if we could get a quick one, we could almost do a conditional approval tonight.
Right.
If that's the only standing issue, right?
I really don't think that, I think that would be appropriate.
You know, we could
I
do
would
a
not be
conditional,
opposed to conditional approval
based on the conversation.
or
okay.
staff,
Staff, whatever it is.
staff recommendation.
I just would hate to hold it up for a month if all we're
I-
waiting
I
for
would
is
too.
a quick
That's right.
conversation with Michelle. you
I
know.
would too, absolutely.
And, so either way, it goes to the board for the fifth.
Correct.
But it,
Well, it'll only go to the board on the 5th if we have the correspondence supporting not requiring this essentially,
Mhm.
right? That would be the,
and if it is required, then we have to wait until that work is completed to get it in front of the board. Or does it come back to the planning commission at that point?
Could the village board approve it conditional upon that work being completed? Or not?
To your satisfaction?
probably. If that's deemed required and the discussion goes that way, sure.
I'd be okay with that. I don't feel like it's gonna, even if it is showing a little fill, there's ways to redo the grading plan to not have that. I don't anticipate the whole site's gonna be flooded, I don't. Just wanna know where it is.
Tonight, we'd be looking at a possible motion that's contingent on the planner's recommendations with the one change related to the final plat being the development agreement, right?
Yeah.
3 points there. Plus the engineer's recommendations with the site plan floodplain issue, waiting for resolution confirmation from Michelle that it would not be required, correct?
Sure.
Does that sound about right for everybody?
Sure, the conversation's gonna be required or not. What if they come back saying, well, we recommend it, but not required?
Recommendation is not required.
Yep. So only if it was required. we would
Required or
enforce it.
not,
Mhm.
correct?
If they say it's a recommendation, then at this point, based on the scenario and the setup, we say that thanks for the recommendation, but we're not gonna enforce that.
Either way, we now have that recorded
Right.
in documents.
I just wanted to clarify one thing on the roads. You had said road gravel before, and I don't know if that was just a quote-unquote layman's term, or what, Our roads do require crushed concrete or lime.
I said mine when I built it was road gravel, I believe. I think that was your spec then.
Back then, he's talking.
Yeah, right. I just making sure we're clear going forward, based on the existing 10-inch, ordinance.
And my personal opinion is I built miles and miles of roads, and I built both with crushed limestone and road gravel. They both hold up. It's how you prep the subgrade below the gravel. That's really the long and short.
I'm not a road guy.
And then it's very important that you seal every crack in the road so moisture doesn't get in there for the freeze-thaw cycles
Right.
that go up.
That's understood.
And that's really what I always do. And where they have the wrong asphalt mix, because some asphalt mixes are meant to be kneaded, and others with heavier loads, there's less tar or asphalt in it to take the heavy loads and like 10,000 cars a day, Where mine, you're lucky you got 100 cars in and out a day, so why you would have a medium duty asphalt mix, it would just dry out sooner and fail sooner.
Very good.
So I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dramatic pause for that.
Clarify what needs to be required only if the DNR says it is a requirement.
Or required.
Correct.
They say it's a recommendation. Thank you.
All right, moving on, item 4B. Review, discussion, and possible recommendation to the village board of a zoning code amendment modifying the list of conditional uses in the B1 downtown business district to include new and used automobile sales establishments on specific and limited terms.
So we talked about this last month, and there was generally favorable feedback about adding this use into the B1 district. You can see on the map the limits of the B1 district in the village. It's a very finite area. It's right here at the intersection of Milwaukee Avenue and Highway 164. It goes from Ritchie's down here to Mr. Zarate's property, catches the cafe, catches Citizens Bank. That's the area of B1 zoning. You're struggling with some light. Can you close the blinds for you?
He's gone.
leaving.
Yeah, he's done. It was a straight LED shot in my brain.
Oh. So the instruction basically from the commission was we don't want to rezone it B2 because we don't want to change kind of the character intent of this specific area of the village. But we would be open to the idea of putting new and used car sales in there on a limited basis. So on a limited basis, I took a stab at what that would mean. And the way the draft is written, it would be a conditional use in the B1 district. It would be permitted only in tandem with an existing permitted operational automotive engine repair, service repair use located on the same property. That would be condition number 1. So effectively, as far as I'm aware, that would be the only opportunity to introduce this use in the B1, because this would be the only existing operating automotive service place.
So it carves out the risk pretty small, is what you're
It
saying.
carves out the risk very small.
Good, because that's what I was worried about.
Okay, so this would be the one locale where it could happen. Then the maximum number of vehicles that could be displayed for sale on the premises at any one time would be 15. I take that number from Mr. Zarate's application, where he's proposing 15. If you feel comfortable with that number when you look at the site layout, then that's an appropriate number. Condition C, that the vehicles displayed will only include cars, light trucks, or similar street vehicles that fit within the footprint of a 9-foot by 18-foot deep parking space, 9 foot wide by 18 feet deep, and doesn't exceed an overall height of 10 feet. So that would really be a limiting factor, right? So we're not gonna get big boats, we're not gonna get RVs, we're not gonna get. What?
Yeah, you have a couple RVs out there, you have a problem.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it fit that.
You'd have a problem, yeah.
Vehicles displayed for sale outdoors on the property would be parked in no other location than the specifically approved spaces depicted on the plan that's been reviewed and approved by the planning commission. So they wouldn't reorganize things and end up parking on the grass or parking over the edge of the sidewalk or anything like that, okay? Unenclosed outdoor storage of materials, equipment, or supplies of any sort is prohibited on the site unless it's expressly approved by the planning commission. So nothing gets stored outdoors in support of the use. New and used auto sales proprietor must at all times hold and abide by any state licensing that's required for a vehicle sales operation. Any substantial adverse material impacts, responsibility of the property owner or proprietor together to resolve, or you're open to a revocation hearing. And that is the extent of the language. So if the commission is still favoring this idea of adding the use, and you are satisfied with those conditions or want to make changes to them, it would be on the agenda tonight for a recommendation to the village board.
Without taking this completely off topic, I have a question in regards to another property that currently does automobile repair and sales, which is, I'm not,
Up this way?
yeah, so it's up here, as you're traveling north on 164 on the left, they.
Right before the barbecue was?
Yeah.
Called My Guy Auto.
My guy out of.
Yeah. So that it was up for sale, but then, I don't know.
Up this way.
Yeah, he was pointing this way, but yeah.
Across from Pete Pickles.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
for sale. This
It was-
gentleman actually has talked about that. That's
It was
B2
for sale, but
zoning.
they took their, well,
Different zone,
but it's
Yeah.
got the same,
slightly different shade.
okay, so that's B2.
That's B2.
Okay, all right, that's all I needed to know.
Yeah, he still has it for sale.
But the sign's down and there's cars back in the lot.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah, he reached out to me to try to buy it, and said already have something going on there, but, yeah, he's done it a couple different times, but
Okay.
it's really in no better shape than really what we got here.
When I talked to him, he said, yeah, well, it's gonna go through, but when the money's on the table and it's in my pocket, that's when it's gone through. But he had 3 more cars down south that need to come up here.
Okay.
That's what he did, all for sale.
At any rate, I guess that's the second topic. Thank you. I was looking at this and I thought that was B2, or B1.
They talked to me.
Thank you for the clarification.
They talked
That's
to
all
me.
I need.
I got one question. Is 18 foot a standard parking spot
I
then?
used to work for his father.
Yeah,
What's
9
wrong
by
with
18 is a standard.
Okay, because I have had a couple of cars that were
50s.
a bit longer than that.
Yeah, that's a standard. They have some of the longer ones if you're doing the trucking and stuff like that. You can go up to 20 feet, but that's pretty standard. Same thing I
Then
have
you
at
get into
my.
some of them 60s cars that were,
Boats?
Yeah,
yeah,
Costco
those
does
mobiles,
12 by
Caddies,
20
Lincolns.
Well,
yeah.
of their own choice.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I
to
know
me.
we're
It's
getting
so
off topic
awesome.
again, but golly, I love their
Yeah,
parking.
I love the amount of space they put in the parking lot.
It's so nice for big trucks.
And we digress.
Yeah.
I didn't write that down. Costco parking also.
Yeah. Make sure that's in the minutes, please.
Anybody else got any?
No, my biggest concern is just narrowing this down as far as the risk profile, which,
Yep.
the way it's worded, perfect,
I like it.
so. I'll make a motion to approve the amendment modifying the list of conditional uses in the B1 district to include the new and used auto sales establishments as depicted in the ordinance that's drafted up.
I'll second that.
Motion in a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4C, review, discussion, and possible recommendation to the village board on the conditional use grant amendment request of applicant Richard Zarate to add the use automobile sales to to the existing auto service conditional use that is still in effect at this site/building. The property is located at South 91, West 22945 Milwaukee Avenue, and the property owner is TAA Incorporated. This .3128 acre property is zoned B1 Downtown Business District.
So this request, of course, has to be subject to, among other things, the board first ratifying the change in the zoning district to allow the auto sales as a conditional use. But what Mr. Zarate is asking for is to continue the existing conditional use that has not been out of commission for more than 12 months yet. So it's still out there, it's still active and valid. But he does want to amend it to incorporate his name as the proprietor and owner of the property. And he also wants to amend it to include automobile sales, 15 cars at any one time. With that, and that would be new and used vehicles. With that, he does propose a couple of changes to the site. The most notable for me would be the extension of paving south of there's an existing guardrail out there at the south edge of the pavement along 164, along that 164 frontage. He wants to extend the pavement further south to make room for a couple of additional cars to be parked visible to Highway 164. And he also wants to fence in the backyard area. It's kind of an open fence, sort of an L-shaped
Yeah,
fence.
they have an L-shaped fence now, which I would keep. I just want to clean it up because it looks so bad there. In between, the last time we had talked, I was gonna fence it into privacy to that house there, so it just didn't look like heck. In between that time, I purchased that house. So I really don't need to have to put the fence, I was doing it
You're
more.
not doing a very good job slowing it down.
No, not at all.
So, well, you know, when that was there, you know, keep it clean, so they didn't have to look at anything, you know, so, but if the green space, then at that would look nice, and I'll just extend it like we talked, like the 12 feet. And I could leave the green grass, not doing it, just work with Peterson and that, and cleaning those trees up. They already have existing fence, we can leave the fence, but I like to try to change it, do even if I pay for it, you know? So basically, it's everything that's there would stay, but just modify it and clean it up and make it new. You know, they already got it fenced in for the rubbish, they already got all that there, I think they have some storage building back there on the site already. So just basically, I wanna clean that up, so I mean, I was more doing that for the neighbor and having it look decent. So if I don't have to box that in and look at like it's a prison yard over there, I'd rather not. Now I can keep the green space, it'll look nice, neat and clean, because I own that house now, so.
Excellent.
So
So you will not be putting.
I won't have to put the fence there. I was doing it more for, like I said, the neighbor and stuff, make it look clean and run it that way.
Sure.
Now at least when you're coming this way, you're not looking at a fence, that's why I asked you about
Yeah.
either a wooden fence, picket fence, or go with a cyclone type little fence with some
Yeah.
slots, just so it looked tasteful.
Yeah,
So now I will not be able to, I don't need to do that.
okay.
Is that adjacent property purchase going to be petitioned to become part of this business? Or-
No, no, I'll just stay where I'm at. I'm going small, she don't want me to do this at all, to tell you the truth, this is more gonna be hobby, do some cars, if I decide to hang out, and sign on the door and say I'm going fishing for a week, or I'm going to Mexico for 4 weeks, I'm gonna do it. So, yeah. But yeah, no, there's nothing, no,
No,
not gonna
I'll
happen.
get on the board.
So-
Tonight.
Just to kind of run you through my thoughts on it, I think it's a fine idea, subject to a variety of conditions, and I'll just go through those. First, that the village board has to ratify the addition of new and used car sales in the B1. Second, that the applicant has to provide an overall drainage plan for the property, taking into consideration the existing site and building coverage, plus the proposed new fencing grades and paving grades, and the expansion of paving. And I want to do this just to make sure that Naomi has a chance to, you know, just get a look at how runoff is going to impact neighboring
would there-
properties potentially.
Would there be any type, nothing's changing as far as that, actually, it'll probably be a better drainage, because they got, somebody heaves in that thing, because no one's maintained it in years. So
Okay.
they're just, really just putting the asphalt right back where it's at, nothing's changed.
I'm talking about something very informal,
Oh.
so maybe you
Yeah.
and Naomi, maybe Naomi.
Yeah, we could, yeah, because like I
You guys
said,
can
nothing's
disconnect.
changed, yeah.
And if you see anything
Yeah.
about the plans that gives you heartburn,
Yeah,
if it can't be worked out, she can kick you back to the planning commission.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what there'd be,
Necessary.
everything should be the same, yeah.
I could
Yeah.
probably just do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just needs to be
Days and
cleaned
hours of
up.
operation at the site will be limited as follows, so you didn't put hours and days.
No,
into
it's
your
probably gonna be
application.
8 to 6, 8 to 7, something like that. Not-
Okay, Monday through.
Monday through, and then Saturday probably, if we decide to, probably from like 8 to 2.
Saturday 8 to 2, Monday through
That's what I did
Friday.
before, right? 8 to 2?
8 to 2.
Yeah, 8 to 2 on Saturday, and then we just figure like, you know, I usually get there 7, but probably figure like 8 to 6, 8 to 7. Put the 8 to 7. Because if they got cars, most people come home from work, they go eat, and then they wanna go look at a car, so figure 7. Like over there, I used to stay open at 9 o'clock, but I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna work that hard.
Alright, if that's acceptable to the commission. The timeline for completing the improvements to the, proposed to the building and the site, not later than.
Well, it all depends on material. So, I'm gonna try to, obviously, I don't wanna look like that, I ain't opening up till it's done. So, I mean, I'm gonna get it done as fast as I can. So I would
Okay.
say, give me a few months, 4 months maybe. All the materials are crazy, I can't even get garage doors.
6 months
Yeah, I would have to think so.
to be
Should be fine.
safe?
Right now, I'm 4 months of getting garage doors at my house.
Okay.
It's crazy.
The only point for this is just that we
No, we got something.
don't wanna,
Yeah.
Always
Contain it.
open-ended thing.
yeah. Applicant to propose setback and, to add the proposed setback and offset information to the plan, for the fence line. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you're gonna maintain a per existing condition.
That's all there,
distance.
yes. And actually, that
That's fine,
fence that's
that's a lot.
there is on their side, that's actually, I talked to Jamie Peterson and his dad Greg.
Yeah.
That's actually their fence, that was actually made out of pallets at one time. So,
Yeah,
I was, there was,
that's kinda coming back.
yeah.
It is, I'm
It's a
seeing.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
Pinterest thing.
Yeah.
So basically, nothing's really gonna, just really a cleanup, like you have on there for lighting. The lighting that they had up there is just gonna be the same way, just, obviously just cleaned up, new. Up on top's coming off the building, simple, cause the lot's not big. So you can't shine it into the ongoing traffic, so they're just gonna come down tastefully. So pretty much like the lighting they had, I got rid of that big sign that they had in the middle of the thing will come down, cause that looked terrible. And then I'll have some signing again. I don't know when the sign will get up, might have to do temporary, because try to reach out to some sign companies that can do anything, you're talking a year, I mean, it's been crazy, yeah. I've called Pavlaki, I've called several others, nobody's doing nothing. But again, I wanna get everything done as fast as I can, so it looks tastefully done.
Okay. So with respect to that fence, I'm gonna replace that condition number 6 to say that or condition number 5, to say that the fence will be per existing conditions.
Correct, yeah.
and setback.
I just basically wanna just clean everything up is what I wanna do.
Okay. Condition number 6, that the applicant will provide a fence detail or description, height, color, metal, wood,
That
et
would be
cetera. So
gone
that
now,
one is eliminated. No new fencing. Condition number 7, that applicant would submit a landscaping plan with further detail showing us which shrubs and plants. you're
Right. Now, I talked to a couple of people on that, and I was gonna get your opinion on that, or the board, or whatever. Some of them, I was gonna put just little shrubs, just to make it up. Then, when I talked to actually Pavlaki and them and stuff like that, and I talked to another one, they're like, they don't recommend, a lot of the areas don't recommend shrubs, because they rather more green area. I don't know how big Ben is.
Like
because-
grass.
Right, like grass, the grass is there, just maybe clean that up. Because then he came up and gave me a quote on that. He said, a lot of people don't want the shrubbery. A lot of them are gonna die because you guys from the road salt and stuff like that, and it's gonna look like hell, because that's gonna kill the shrubbery real fast. So, I guess once he said that, that made sense, because I asked him, to make that clean where the grass was, so we had a
Yeah.
nice clean edge, and then I told him, I was gonna put some shrubbery, make a, he goes, yeah, good luck with that. He says, with the road debris and for the snow plows and the salt coming off the road,
Yeah.
those will never make it.
I wouldn't like to rule it out. We've had a very limited couple of locations with
Yeah.
just a small grouping of shrubs.
Yeah. And I'm open to it.
I
I
have
mean-
some pretty hardy
Yeah.
plant types
But
that
we
I
got-
can share information
Sure.
with you on.
She loves planting, so I could care less.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about anything that that gets,
Yeah.
you know, big enough to obscure the view of your cars that
Right.
are displayed there.
Yeah, I was just
So-
looking subtle, but that's what Theo was saying, because usually
Yeah.
they never last.
But I think it would be good to keep those in
Sure, I have no problem with
tightly
that.
mulched areas so that the rest can be turf that's
Mhm.
maintained as green space.
Yeah, you can shoot that too, I have no problem with it,
Yeah.
because like I said, I want it to look good, it's a corner, you know, so it looks decent.
And I said in condition 7, subject to planning commission review and approval, if you're comfortable with it, you can defer that to staff for review and approval. As far as the landscaping plan. Condition number 8, applicant submitted an exterior lighting plan with further detail showing the fixture type, the mounting height, the locations, and the dispersion plan, if we can clearly see what the cast based on the fixture type.
Sure, I can
that
get
way.
pictures of what I plan on putting on the outside by the doors, they got some now, they're just gonna change them out, make them look more modern, you know. Haven't really quite decided myself yet which way I wanna go,
Okay,
so.
when you do, get me the fixture types.
Sure.
The mounting height, the locations, and
Yeah.
from there, we'll be able to decide whether a dispersion plan is required.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I think they got theirs now running with the conduit on top, if I had to guess, it's probably like 11 feet, but I'll do a measurement on that.
Applicant to provide a proposed dumpster or trash receptacle location and screening plan if you're going to have any outdoor trash receptacles.
Yeah, they got it behind
Or
that
dumpster.
fencing now, you know,
Yeah.
they got a fence that opens up.
Yeah.
So again, that'll just be, you know, reconditioned and done and keep it the same way. So it won't be out in front at all.
Must be fully screened, because I don't notice it when I come up.
No, it's all fenced
So
in.
it's in a wood, like a wood
Yeah,
fence.
Yeah, it's on the east side of the building.
I think that's what he means, must open, yeah, good. And then finally, the applicant represents that the enclosed area within the fence is intended to remain as turf grass.
Yeah, it's state on grass obviously, because they're not
Yep.
blocking nothing off anymore, so.
Good. I put that in here just so we don't get into a drainage situation.
Yeah, and you can't go back that way anyhow, that's why I'm limited so much, I'm only really going out 12 feet, the length is the same, or the width, is because there is a septic system, so you can't go into that anyhow. So you wouldn't
Yeah,
be,
that's right.
you wouldn't wanna drive back there, cause you'd crush your system. So, that's what I'm
So,
saying.
with those conditions from a planning standpoint, I think this would be a fruitful condition.
What were the changes in your recommendation then? So obviously number 3, we put in the hours. Number 4, we put 6 months.
Number 5 is for existing conditions on setback.
Yep.
Scratch 6.
6 was scratched, yep. 7 was defer to staff.
Mhm.
8 was defer to staff.
Yep.
9 was behind the dumpster and trash receptacle locations will be behind the existing fencing.
That's what I missed.
That was it.
I just wanna make sure we're all clear on what was the changes there.
That's what I have. I'd make a motion to recommend to the village board, conditional use grant amendment request of applicant Richard Zarate to add the use automobile sales to the existing auto sale conditional use that is still in effect at the site building. And furthermore, well, wait a minute, would this be separate? Do we have to go to the board with recommendations for the actual, with your recommendations, or is that separate?
No, that's pretty
you're-
erosion.
You're recommending
Okay.
approval subject to those conditions.
Yeah, it would be recommending approval subject to the village planner's recommendations as modified and now recorded.
One second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Doctor's ready.
All right, thank you.
Good luck.
To the community.
Thanks.
So one more meeting on August 5th.
August
Okay,
fifth,
and then whenever
okay.
you like.
I don't have my business card.
Okay.
Go ahead and give me a call.
All right, all right, thank you.
All right, you guys have a good night.
You too, thank you.
Okay.
Move on to item 4D, review, discussion, and possible approval of a temporary outdoor event to be held on September 4th, 2021. The conditional use permit granted for this site back in 2005 provides for occasional outdoor events such as this to be permitted, subject to prior review and approval by the Planning Commission. The property is located at South 91 West 22920 Milwaukee Avenue, and it is zoned B1 Downtown Business District. The property owner / applicant is R&L Petrie LLC in care of Richard Petrie.
Pretty straightforward, doesn't require a public hearing, doesn't require a conditional use amendment, that was all written into the original conditional use. So he wants to do one event on September 4th. He would have DJ indoors, and you have the doors and windows open so that people who would be seated outdoors could enjoy the music, and just outdoor fresh air and drinking and socializing. Eating, drinking, and socializing, I guess. The conditions that I'm recommending would be attached to this. If you're inclined toward an approval, you can see the hours of operation. So those would be 11 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. The provision under section 9 goes on to say that the music emanating from inside the bar has to stop by 11 p.m. So the doors and windows have to be shut by then. And then that the patrons would be cleared out and moved indoors not later than 11:30. So that's Richie's request, okay? It's up to you guys, how you handle those hours of operation. The scale of the use is such, and he's got a new system that he put in at the bar, that he does not propose to have any porta potties. Down to conditions that I'm recommending, on or before August 27th, he would show evidence of consent to the village clerk from Big Bend Food and Beverage or Citizens Bank, showing that they're willing to allow overflow parking on their sites in the event that becomes necessary as a part of this outdoor use. Number 2, that any litter or debris happening because of the event has to be cleaned up from the site and the surrounding area on an ongoing basis during the event. Condition number 3, tents, fencing, safety tape, signs, anything else that's out there on the site during the day of the event has to be removed by noon on September 5th, which would be the Monday following, I believe.
That's Labor Day, correct?
It is. Might want to give a grace period there.
Yeah, especially for the
5th is Sunday, isn't it?
Sunday?
Let me look.
Wait, the
If she
7th.
said Monday, and that's what, yeah, correct, 5th is Sunday, so we're okay.
Okay.
You're probably good, yeah. So
Right.
the event's on Saturday then, not
You
on
hate to
Monday.
just leave the lot sit with tents and chairs and whatnot, because someone's gonna,
And we've done this before, anytime he had like Richie Fest and stuff like
Yeah.
that, we've given him that kind of window. I was only worried
Okay.
about it if it was Labor Day.
Yeah, you're talking, that is Labor Day.
No, so she
it's Labor Day
misquoted.
weekend.
It's the weekend, correct.
Yeah. So I guess my only concern is I don't know if you'd be able to get the tent taken down the next day, Sunday, after the, because
tent.
it's Labor Day weekend.
That's his
It's
tent,
his
it's
tent.
a 20 by 40.
Oh, I thought it was,
Yeah, it's not a rental.
I thought he always brought in a rental.
Yeah.
Bigger events he does, when
Mhm.
when he does like the outdoor beer,
The Richie
bar and
Fest thing.
stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Condition 4, police chief review and recommendation of any conditions he feels are necessary. I always forward this over to the chief and let him know we're asking, and if there's anything that comes up. He typically deals with Richie straight on with it, and they work it out, but want to make sure that's in there so he knows the chief can weigh in. Condition 5, the use approval can be revoked in whole or part without advance notice by police chief, fire chief, village president if problems come up. Number 6, applicant has to have any licenses, including an extension of premises if that's what he needs to have alcohol outdoors in the parking lot. Elena, I'm sure will look into that and figure out what we need from a liquor licensure standpoint. Condition 7, on or before August 27th, applicant to present a sign plan for these signs that he's gonna put out for this thing. In the past, he just kind of works it out with the neighbors. Nothing has been a problem when I talk to Chief afterwards, so he's pretty user-friendly on that point. Number 8, security to be provided at the applicant's expense during the outdoor operating hours. Not less than 2 on-duty, readily identifiable security staff. I don't know that 2 is absolutely necessary, and by readily identifiable security staff, I mean bar staff that's wearing something that's clearly distinguishes them as the person who's checking IDs, going out into the parking lot and coming back into the bar, but not walking off premises with liquor or beer. Hours of operation, so that 2 might reasonably be 1. I was really kind of looking for commission input on that. Hours of operation would be limited, just like we talked about earlier. And then to prevent people from walking or standing outside, I'm recommending that he be required to cone and tape off the area where the chairs are gonna be placed, and limit that to a one way in, one way out, so that we don't get off premises drinking. So with those conditions, and the commission can talk about, a few of those things, if you have other feelings, I think it would be a recommendable, or an approvable request.
So Richie just does something at least once a year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it only has his Richie
Never
Fest,
problems.
so I mean, yeah, there's never been any issue. This is all, I don't wanna call it rubber stamp, but lack of a better term.
Pretty straightforward.
All this is all stuff that he'll be very familiar with because of previous events, so.
Police and fire department would probably have more input on it than any of us as far as the safety goes.
There was no problems last year.
No, I
So
think,
this isn't the Richie Fest, this is something
No.
different? he's
No,
just doing?
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's lower.
I was gonna say, 'cause there's only one day and smaller.
No outdoor music.
maybe it's a wedding.
Yeah, it doesn't, yeah, I mean, it's kind of vague, that's why I was like, what is this?
Make a recommendation to approve the,
Temporary outdoor event?
temporary outdoor event as proposed for, Richie's.
I will second
I'm assuming you mean with all
With the
planner's recommendations too.
With the recommendations, as proposed by the planner.
Very good. Motion and second. Any further discussion?
My only discussion is my apologies for making a disjointed motion.
that. Yeah, that was.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I got caught off guard there. I started to say it, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's wanting approval for it, and I thought it was like a exemption or a, something to the,
It's kind of a nothing, it's not a CU, it's not a site plan approval, it's a,
Item 5, planners report for June, July 2021. Terry?
I had Jason on the phone today and neglected to ask for his update on all of these items. So I really can't tell you where most of those are at. The Lake Park storage condos, I think Naomi is the right person to give that update. I don't mean to catch you on the spot if there's, but,
Well, and you guys had a meeting, did that get approved? The meeting for
yes, it did.
the
Special-
agreement?
Yeah.
The special agreement? Yeah.
Yep.
Special meeting, that was
Yep.
a couple weeks ago.
So I have that clean language, and I'm gonna come and see Alina on Monday
Okay.
to go over details of this meeting, but then also to work with Jamin to get the revised copy signed. The old copy is all signed. It's not
Melody's.
fire, but,
Right.
okay.
Will did do a site inspection out there this week, saw that, he had, some self-fence problems that he said James been real good about calling him the next day and repairing everything and taking care of it, so I don't see any need for concern with respect to that.
Our inspector's been up there too they're constructing the stormwater basin and they've had delay because they can't get clay for the clay liner. So, they've done a portion of it, I don't know if it's half or a little over half of the clay liner. And then they're waiting for additional materials. So he's been out there a couple times. It's been good communication, calling us when he needs to, and they were gonna start laying storm sewer this week. But I did talk to Jason and Vince today about the Lake Work storage condos, and I think they were starting to do some plumbing. So I'm gonna see if I can get the updated plan set, because I didn't see any, the laterals and stuff that I wanted to see. I don't know, I was gonna check with Vince and get more detail on that, because Vince was out there.
Clarification on the road access from Edgewood that's coming across the adjacent property, the landfill property. For some reason, I have it in my brain that they were going to do that at grade and not necessarily excavate down into the ground. It looks like there's excavation down 2.5 feet in some
They had
areas.
to excavate to put in the road, but if the finish grade would be at.
Okay, was that decided beforehand that they were going to be able to
Yeah, that was
excavate
not,
into?
that they were gonna go down at least to put in the base, part of the base and.
So my follow-up questions with that are in regards again to the landfill cap and then also the spoils that came out of there. Have they been separated? Are they still on site? Was there any analytical done of those since they're coming off of a known contaminated site?
That's a good question.
To me, I don't see any separated spoil piles, and I'm concerned with that because if they're mixing it into general soils that are on the other site, then we have a commingling of potential contaminated product that may or may not be used in off-site.
We had that letter response from the DNR saying that they were aware that the grade was gonna, that there was gonna be some digging
Some
involved with the
minor
road
grading, yeah.
and weren't concerned, but
Yeah, some
it didn't address the disposal or use of said
It did
soil.
not.
It only did when they did the testing for the basin
Correct.
and said, hey, how's this soil gonna look? Do we need to do something with it besides use it again, right?
Yeah.
And that was determined no at that point for that area, but not
Correct.
on the road
And I
side.
don't think we got
And my other,
that.
my other concern with that is 2.5 feet is not minor digging. That's, I mean, that's way down in there. Are we disturbing the cap? We never determined where the cap is in that. And I don't want us.
I don't think we got anything from Vernon on that, right?
But you know, in talking to talking to Jamin and Greg, they said that all they seemed to appear to take off was clean fill off the top. Didn't hit any discoloration, anything odd. I said, did you hit the clay liner? She said, no.
Well, we don't even know if it's clay. That's the other thing. It
Right.
could be rock and it could be general fill as a cap. If somebody approved that at some point, we just don't know what it is.
I will inquire what they are doing with excavated material from that roadway.
I mean, if there indeed is a clay liner on top of that and they didn't hit it, should just be clean fill, it should be able to be commingled.
Should be.
Should be.
Yeah. But I want to make affirmation of that
Right.
before that goes into general soils that are being taken off-site and used for fill and other projects that may or may not hold liability issues back to us.
That's all I have on Lake Park.
No further update from planner?
Nothing.
Very good. Let's move on to item 6, fire inspector's report.
Okay, fire inspections are still going on yet, and pretty much the re-inspections have been completed, all good. And, we worked at the rumble at the river, and, we only had one incident where one burnt hand, and everything is really good up there. Did give one, burning permit to Mike Khan to burn the brush over in,
Douglas Court.
yeah.
With all the dry conditions, has there been any restrictions on any fires at all?
Well, I imagine there is, yeah. You could look at the Smokey the Bear up there and he'll tell you.
Well, he says-
And that is
he says
staked,
it's
that is
high.
staked, that is staked.
Oh, I know. I've been out of pocket for a little bit. I was
Okay.
just curious to see if there was
No.
any that you knew of.
When Mike was ready to burn, he didn't burn that day, he burned the next day, and it rained somewhat. So it helped out quite a bit. So he was allowed to do that. I know he might have had a neighbor that wasn't too happy, but
He did.
Yeah,
I,
Got a call.
I'm trying to be nice here.
well, I said, hey, if it's okay with the fire marshal,
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, permit, people are aware.
Yeah,
Right.
and it had to be done, it had to be, you know.
Yeah, it's not like he's out there doing it every weekend for fun.
Yeah, right. So other than that, I do not have nothing else, unless somebody says something for me. Nothing?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 7, building inspector's report. Jason, Vince?
Jason, I was gonna say no report.
Excellent, thank you. Item 8, engineer's report. Naomi?
Douglas Court is under construction, started this week, I think Monday, maybe. And we got a call from the grader, same day he started, saying that, the site conditions were not consistent with the site plan. So there's a drainage well going right in the middle of the basin, in which the plan was to burn quite a bit on the side of the wetland. So, we've been working with the grader, and actually Mr. Khan met on site with us today, and Ryan Cardinal, and there will be some modifications during construction to allow the wetland to continue to overflow in the same location. The pond will be lowered. There's gonna maybe be some loss of storage, but at this point, we're gonna get as much capacity out of that area as we can, as we're bordered on one side by the wetland, one side by the house, and now by the drainage swale.
Is the drainage well going on the east side of it?
It's going
Cause I saw some
this,
today.
okay, so you know how the pond now like wraps like this?
Mhm.
It's like right here, right where it's gonna wrap around.
Yeah, I was surprised when I drove by today and saw the activity. I'm like, I was first some interest, like, what are they doing? You know, cause it did
Yeah.
look significantly different than what I expected.
Does that mean that the marsh would drain into the pond?
No,
No.
so there's the
That's
water.
almost right.
There's Douglas Court, and it has like a cul-de-sac. The water will come in, it'll get in the pond, which was the location of the original pond by the house.
Yeah, right.
And then that area will flow by swale around to the back, and it'll be deeper back there to settle out, pollutants, TSS. And then it there's gonna be a weeper overflow that goes into the wetland, which is per plan.
Okay.
So once is treated, it will go into the wetland. When the wetland gets to the existing overtopping elevation, it flows out across the swale.
Okay, so
So
it would go from the ditches and other collection points down to the pond, which would then go to a dissemination ditch that would overflow or backflow into the
Wetlands.
and then the wetlands would not overflow back to the pond. They would overflow
Away from
Yeah,
away
it's
from
actually gonna end up to be about the same elevation. They could flow back into the pond.
So we could actually have like a large storm event where we would see everything building up through there?
Yeah.
With no discharge?
No, it will discharge.
It will
It'll
still
go
discharge, okay.
It will go into the same channel or swale
Okay,
that it does now,
okay,
at the same elevation.
okay.
So we will have, the wetland potentially can go into the pond in rain events, probably would have to raise a foot before it goes out of its natural. But so it'll be a little additional storage for the wetland, if the wetland got higher than the pond.
Okay. All right, I think I understand.
Which is extremely unlikely considering the topography in that
Yeah.
area. The pond should fill up first
Right.
because of the houses being built. Prior to
Yes.
that, maybe not so much. Then
Yeah.
I could see that, but yeah.
Right, so best case scenario, we're gonna meet the DNR's requirements for the 1 and 2 year storage, we're gonna meet water quality requirements. Cardinal's gonna do the calculations, probably demonstrate a 10-year storage requirement in the pond, but the 100-year will probably be a combination of the pond and the wetland. That's what I think we're gonna do.
Fair enough.
So they are continuing construction. The grader out there has been awesome. He's been really diligent and like, I don't think you should do this. Their engineer was saying, no, you have to do it per plan. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So we're all on the same page. He's going to finish the grading. We'll keep checking in. He knows the points of checking where he needs to do for the outlet structure and the ending piping. He's gonna call us, and then we're gonna get in as-built, and we'll get recuts when the as-bilt's done.
Do we get any kind of a timeline window?
He has the 60 days but from the board, so.
Oh, yeah, I get it, but now that the actual work is starting, I mean, I was hoping
Oh,
that the contractor would
that,
say,
yeah, he thinks he'll be done by the end of the month.
hey, okay, good.
Yeah,
End of
Yeah.
July. Well,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
And the road's all good up there now?
The pavement's good, shoulder's not good, but they'll finish the grade first, and then they'll have to do the shoulder.
I think Mike said he had like, what, about 150 feet of shoulder and left to redo again, like the third time, but
Yeah.
But she was planning this due to the utilities or something, right?
yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, he's got some shouldering, they'll finish the
But
grade.
is that all he really has though, is that like 150 feet or whatever? Everything else is okay?
Yep.
Nice. Wow, that was a vague answer.
That was a bang, right.
I'm taking it.
Yeah.
But if it's gonna rain heavy, that shoulder is gonna be a problem. Am I
Oh,
right?
yeah, I mean, we're lucking out, because that's
Because
pretty
I'm
steep.
thinking of, our trucks turning around in there and so forth, everything else, and if it rains.
No,
then we have a problem, that's
we
not.
have
gonna-
some areas where the shoulder is okay.
Yeah.
Out there, it doesn't all need to be replaced. We have some areas where it needs to be compacted and it's narrow. So yeah, we'll be out there marking the shoulder when we get to that point.
Okay. We just have to
I
get
don't
that
know if
road
it's
accepted very soon.
What's that?
That road needs to be accepted
Yes,
very soon.
that is the goal. Absolutely.
As long as we're on that, thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else?
No. Don't think I do anything.
Any correspondence? Well then,
Alright,
motion to adjourn.
I was gonna let Chris do it.
Oh,
I seconded that.
He seconded it.
I did enough for me. Go ahead, go on.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Chris.
That's right.
We are adjourned.
There'll be plenty of
I
opportunity.
really messed up motions tonight.
No, you didn't, you did good.
I stumbled, I stuttered,
You lowered the bar now when I have to do it, okay? How about that?
That's what happens.
This is a good team player.
This is the guy that you need to learn from.
Well, I know, that's why I never want to do it. So now you did it, I'm good.
He
now.
has some
We're ready to
ratings
rock.
and he has etiquette and his. He's got it.
Some days I have no filter.
Yeah, I can say that too. Well, first couple of weeks, what do you think?
Still here, that's a good sign.
That's what Jill said when she walked in. So far, so good. I knew what I was getting
Today's
myself
a lot
into.
to
so
get.
that
Yeah,
was-
that's kind of the good part, at least